Hello everybody, my name is QueenE and today we're reading some patch notes for Season 3. I'm freaking excited. Let's go right into it. So it says drop into Season 3 to explore the depths of the coolest new control map, Antarctic Peninsula. Haha, we see what they did there. Compete in limited time in-game events such as Ultimate Valentine. Okay. Customize your heroes with new skins and cosmetics from the Battle Pass and weekly shop drops. Now earn credits in the Battle Pass that can be redeemed for over 250 cosmetics from the original Overwatch and go premium to get exclusive rewards, such as Mythic Amaterasu Kiriko. Obviously, we're getting the new map, Antarctic Peninsula. I got some cool gameplay. Get it? Cool. Of this map up already, so do go check that out. There's also a new feature called Streamer Protect that's in, where you can activate some Streamer Protect options in the in-game settings. These options will provide players with ways to hide identifying information when live streaming matches. There's also some general update like accessibility improvements, some challenges added and changed and improved, and you can also endorse the opposing team now, which is super fun. In the game report, you can also view scoreboards from previous matches. Mystery heroes have been changed, so it limits each team to a maximum of 3 of each role. Overwatch credits are also back. They used to be labeled legacy credits, but they're back to being called Overwatch credits. And they were not earnable at all in Overwatch 2, but they can now once again be earned through progressing in the Season 3 Battle Pass. So everybody can earn up to 1,500 credits as the free rewards and another 500 if you're using the premium Battle Pass. These credits can be spent in the hero gallery, which now contains nearly all seasonal, epic, and legendary tier skins released prior to the launch of Overwatch 2. There's also been a little ping system update where if you press ability 1 or 2 when the ping wheel is opened, and when these abilities are on cooldown, you now print these cooldowns in chat. Also, the Season 3 competitive changes are coming in where you now only need 5 wins or 15 losses for a skill tier and division adjustment. It used to be 7 wins or 20 losses, which is quite a lot, and I'm really glad to see them lowering that. You no longer need to use post-its or Excel sheets to track your progress through the games either, because now you can view your competitive progress by hitting the button in the competitive menu to see how close you are to receiving a rank update. Last but not least, on the non-hero related changes, the workshop editor is back. They've also made it a little bit easier to report bad workshop modes. If you see anything with inappropriate names that has inappropriate communication in it, you can now report all of these a lot easier by just hitting the right click and choosing to report. But now we get to the part that I'm sure we're all the most excited and curious about, which is the hero updates. First things first, for all heroes, the maximum ultimate charge retained when swapping heroes has been reduced from 30 to 25%. And the developer says that as part of this patch, there was a tuning pass for how often ultimate abilities are being generated. So expect to see several ultimate cost adjustments across multiple heroes. So this is really interesting because obviously the swap meta was definitely super strong, especially for tanks. The tank role passive has been changed as well, or added an extra one. The health totals for all tank heroes will be lower when playing any game mode that does not have a role queue. Health totals will remain the same for tanks when playing any role queue enabled game. And the developer says that this change to the tank HP pool helps to address the relative power of those heroes in game modes where there can be multiple of them on the same team. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you ever played open queue, but I tried it out and it was like 3 or 4 tanks and 1 support, or 2 supports and 3 tanks, and it was chaos. I mean, it was not fun for me personally. I mean, if somebody's out there loving that type of gameplay, I mean, all the power to you, but it just wasn't for me. And basically, if you were the team that did not pick like 3 or more tanks, you would usually just straight up lose because tanks were just that powerful. So this makes a lot of sense. Junkerqueen actually get a 25 HP health buff in role queue modes, which is kind of fun to see. I think she was a little bit too squishy, so yeah, this probably helps a little bit. The developer comment for this one is actually pretty funny because they just say the overall base health for Junkerqueen is increased by 25 HP. Yep. She gets 25 more HP, deal with it. Orisa gets a slight nerf to her augmented fusion driver. The damage fall-off range is reduced from 25 to 15 meters, which means that she will no longer be as oppressive on longer ranges, but still quite scary up close. And I think that's absolutely fair because she was quite powerful even in pretty long ranges. So I think this is absolutely fair. So Ramattra's ulti actually is getting a nerf too. Now when you damage enemies with ultimate, it slows the duration timer down instead of pausing it entirely. And now it lasts up to a maximum of 20 seconds. And the ultimate cost has also been increased by 12%. The developer says the following: the idea of an ultimate ability potentially lasting forever is an exciting concept. But the reality is that if it's too easy to do, it causes a lot of frustrations. And with Ramattra's ultimate in particular, an excessive amount of visual noise, we're limiting the maximum duration to 20 seconds, which is still highly impactful for most teamfights, but it guarantees it'll end in a reasonable amount of time. And this was absolutely a big problem, I think, because Annihilation, sure, it didn't do the most damage, but the fact that it lasted so long, and if you were a team that was very, very good at healing, for example, so you managed to out-heal a lot of that incoming damage, the ulti just lasted forever, and it felt very, very punishing, and like there was no real counterplay to it unless you had a sleep dart and nobody woke him up, unless there was enough cover to run behind to break the line of sight of the tethers, unless you had a Reinhardt that was up in his face and blocked the tethers from the rest of his team. Like, it was pretty challenging at times, and I think this is absolutely the right direction to take it into without nerfing it too hard to be useless. Reinhardt gets a few buffs as well, a slight nerf, but mainly buffs. So charge cooldown has been reduced from 8 to 7 seconds. You can charge more often. Fire strike damage has been increased from 90 to 100, meaning that you can two-shot some people if you land both fire strikes in a row, which is pretty scary. The earth shattered direct hit damage has been reduced from 250 to 170, so the only character he can one-shot now with his earth shatter is Tracer, I believe. Everybody else should at least be able to survive from the initial impact. However, the knockdown duration has instead been increased from 2.5 to 2.75 seconds, meaning that if you do get hit by Earth Shatter, you will be laying prone for a little bit longer. The ultimate cost has been increased by 7% as well, so you will see it a little bit less frequently. The Rocket Hammer knockback impulse has been reduced from 10 to 6, which means that basically when you swing his hammer around, you won't get knocked about quite as much, which actually kind of helped you escape sometimes. This is, in my opinion, definitely a buff as well. It doesn't have like a giant impact, but it definitely makes getting chased down by him a little bit more scary. The developer comment on the Reinhardt changes is that in similar fashion to Roadhog's chain hook combo changes last season, we generally like to avoid heroes in the tank role from killing enemies in one shot. Earth Shatter direct hit damage is being reduced with that goal in mind. In most cases, targets on the receiving end would die anyway during the knockdown stun, but it does open up some potential for their allies to intervene. For now, we're fine with Charge Pin staying lethal to many characters due to the difficulty and risk involved. The Fire Strike damage increase does mean it could once again one-shot when combined with Baptiste's Amplification Matrix, but that requires an ultimate combo with another hero. We'll see how it plays out and adjust if necessary. The Rocket Hammer knockback reduction sounds like a loss of power, though it is actually aiming to reduce the number of times Reinhardt accidentally knocks enemies out of his melee range. See, that's what I was saying. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And it's good to see Reinhardt get a little bit of love, actually, because I feel like he's been lagging behind the rest of the roster a little bit in this new high-paced form that is Overwatch 2, right? Roadhog, however, also gets like a slight buff, actually. I mean, it's like a buff and then like a slight nerf, but mainly a buff. So his ultimate maximum duration has been increased from 6 to 8 seconds, but it costs 8% more to charge. So it will take longer to charge, but it will last for 2 seconds longer, which is quite significant. So the developer comment says this: allowing Roadhog to use abilities during his ultimate made it much more reliable in a solo tank environment, though doing so was often much like just cancelling the ultimate as it ran out of time. We're adding a couple seconds to the maximum duration to increase the flexibility of player choices during the whole hog ultimate, but we'll keep an eye on it if it's simply too much damage or knockback overall. I think that's fair to at least try that out, because absolutely, if you were using like the healing or whatever, that would take off like half of your ultimate, just like huffing on that copium that Roadhog carries with him at all times. I am also a little bit scared for the Roadhogs that don't use any abilities during the whole hog, and then you just have 8 seconds of carnage coming out of that guy. which, yeah, that'll be fun. Sigma has had his ultimate cost increased by 7%, which, you know, there's not much to say about Sigma, really, because other than that, he hasn't had any changes. Oh, Winston gets his barrier projector a bit nerfed. The health is reduced from 700 to 650. Honestly, I like to see it, because the amount of times that I feel like that bubble just lasts a little bit too long is every time. So yeah, this will be a good change for him, at least as a support main. Wrecking Ball is actually getting some pretty decent changes here. So the base health in role queue modes has been reduced from 600 to 450, and the base health in non-role queue modes has been reduced from 600 to 300. However, he's had the shield health increase from 0 to 150. So it seems that he has 450 base health with a 150 shield instead, meaning he's still at 600 total in game, in role queue modes at least. But part of that is now auto regenerating, like 150 of that health is shield that auto regenerates. That's pretty interesting. The pile driver cooldown has been reduced from 10 to 8 seconds, so you can slam down more often. And the minefield ultimate cost has been increased by 9%, but the time it takes to arm the mines has been reduced from 1.5 to 1 second. And the developers have some comments on this, saying Wrecking Ball received some of the fewest changes in the transition to 5v5, as he proved to be one of the most effective solo tanks in early testing. His extreme mobility and massive health pool enable him to choose when to fight much more freely than other heroes. These changes are aimed at reducing his downtime so he can press that advantage even further. The regenerating shield health pool often leads to not needing to search for as many health packs before getting back in position. That's very, very true. I feel like Wrecking Ball can be pretty scary this season. Zarya gets a little bit of an ultimate cost increase by 8%. And that's it for the tank changes, but there's of course some DPS changes coming too. First of all, we got Cassidy, where the combat roll movement is no longer blocked by enemy player collisions. You can just roll through the enemy team, which sounds pretty hilarious to be honest. The Peacekeeper primary fire fall-off range has been increased from 20 to 25 meter. So opposite to Orisa, Cassidy actually becomes more effective at longer ranges now, which yeah, I mean, they nerfed that for a reason the first time around, so this could be pretty scary, but we'll see how this plays out. And the developer comment is this: combat roll not being blocked by players is mostly a small quality of life change to make the ability feel smoother, particularly when rolling in a direction that you're not facing. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you haven't seen Cassidy been played overly much. I don't think he's been bad by any means, but he's just been like a little bit awkward in Overwatch 2. So we'll see if these changes makes a big difference to that. There's also a Junkrat nerf coming in, because the concussion mine is now having its maximum damage reduced from 120 to 100. And the developer comment is that as the concussion mine already has damage fall off, the further from the explosion the enemy player is, lowering the maximum damage will require Junkrat to be slightly more accurate to achieve the same lethality with some of his combos. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but Junkrat is definitely kind of frustrating to play against right now, because he will jump from above and then just drop one mine and one grenade and you just melt. And there's just not a lot you can do. So I think this is a good change overall. I think they definitely need to pay a lot of attention to these kind of characters that can very, very quickly almost one-shot you. Then we have 3 ultimate cost reductions. We got May's Blizzard has been reduced by 5%, Pharah's Barrage has been reduced by 5%, and Reaper's Death Blossom has been reduced by 8%. So all these 3 will have their ultimates up a little bit quicker than they currently do. Soldier 76 gets actually quite a nice little buff here. The number of shots to reach maximum recoil has been increased from 4 to 6, and the recoil has been reduced by 12%. So he will be a lot more accurate, which I think will be really good for him. The developer comment is that this is more of an adjustment for the gun feels rather than strictly trying to add power, but it does have an effect on both. It makes the weapon handle more similar to the original version in that you can burst fire more accurately accurately before the recoil kicks in. I think that's really good, actually. In the right hands, a Soldier 76 with less recoil is absolutely deadly. So, yeah, happy days to all the Soldier 76 mains out there. We're actually getting some Sombra changes. Look at this, guys. The machine pistol, the damage per projectile has been increased from 7 to 7.5, and the health pack hacked duration has been increased from 30 to 45 seconds. The developer comments are the following: Sombra is underperforming after her last round of changes. Yeah, you could say that again. While we make progress on a small rework for her abilities, oh, she's getting reworked? This damage increase will help strengthen Sombra even against targets that aren't affected by her hack effect. It's a small increase per projectile, but it adds up quickly due to her fast fire rate. The health pack duration increase is a minor buff to avoid needing to rehack them quite so often. I think that's more than fair enough, and yeah, she's been in the dumpster since the last changes. Honestly, like, I feel for all the Sombra mains out there. Symmetra gets a slight nerf to her photon barrier. The ultimate cost has been increased by 10%, so you won't see as many photon barriers being thrown out. Torbjörn also gets a little nerf to his turret. The turret base health has been reduced from 250 to 225. And the developer comment and the reasoning for this is, with the move to 5v5 and one less player to shoot at it, Torbjörn's turret tends to survive longer than ever. We're reducing its health slightly to help it feel less like a sixth player and be easier to deal with once someone turns their attention to it. I think that's absolutely fair. As a Torbjörn enjoyer, the turret is still good. Yeah, 225 health. I don't think that will make much of an impact in the efficiency of it, but it will definitely make it less frustrating to play against for the enemy team. So I'm actually, I don't mind that change at all. I think that's absolutely fair. Widowmaker is getting a nerf to her base health. It's being reduced from 200 to 175, and the developer comment is that we experimented with Widowmaker at 200 health for a while due to concerns that the increased power of tanks made her too vulnerable to them. Ultimately, she gains more advantages from 5v5 than she loses, so we're returning her back to 175 HP to better enable more heroes to contest her lethal ranged capabilities. Thank God for that. So to any flankers out there, to any Winston mains and Diva mains, go get that Widowmaker. She's weaker now. Go get her. Get her. And that is it for the damage changes. But last but not least, we of course have some support changes coming in as well, which I am most curious about, considering I am a support main. Anna gets a nerf to her biotic grenade. The effect duration has been reduced from 4 to 3.5 seconds. I think, honestly, I think this is more than fair. I felt that 4 was like a little bit long because at the start of Overwatch 2 and in the beta, the duration was 4 seconds. But then they reduced it to 3 seconds, which felt a little bit too short and unimpactful. So then they changed it back to 4 seconds, which again started to feel pretty strong. So now they've found a happy middle ground at 3.5 seconds. I don't think this is too bad of a change. I think this is fair because I do think 4 seconds is a little bit strong. Brigitte is getting some changes this season, but she has still some reworks coming up soon for Season 4, so this won't be the last of it. So her repair packs, the healing over time has been reduced from 55 to 50 per second, but applying a repair pack now instantly heals for 25 health on impact. So that's, kind of a nerf to the overall healing, but it does apply the instant 25 health on impact, which should help your teammates out in a sticky situation where they're getting really, really low. So I think that's actually a decent change, and I like that a lot. The ultimate cost of rally has been reduced by 10% as well, which I think, oh my god, thank you, because Brig's ult took forever to charge. The developer comment is the following, that the repair pack having a small amount of instant healing will help Brig have more agency in saving an injured ally and generally makes the ability feel more responsible and impactful. And I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And I can't wait to play Brig a little bit. I love Brig in Overwatch 2. I think she needs a bit more love. And as I said, we do know that there are reworks coming for Season 4, but it's nice to see her getting some love already in Season 3 patch. Lucio's sound barrier has had his ultimate cost reduced by 7% as well, so we'll get a few more Lucio sound barriers coming up. Oh, but then we have Mercy. She is getting quite a few changes, guys. Guardian Angel cooldown has been increased from 1.5 to 2.5 seconds, and I did play with it in the Antarctica map, and I gotta tell you guys, it doesn't feel good. I don't like the cooldown increase from 1.5 to 2.5 seconds. It doesn't sound like a lot, but that one extra second makes a big difference. And I personally don't like that whatsoever. Holding the backwards directional input and canceling the ability with jump now moves 20% slower. That's absolutely fair. Honestly, that doesn't feel so bad even in game, so I don't mind that change at all. Caduceus staff healing per second has been reduced from 55 to 45. However, healing is increased by 50% for allies under half health. Now, this actually means that this is like overall a buff, and it would make her way more efficient at helping out, kind of more like a main healer, I'm not gonna lie. Basically, if you're healing somebody that's under half health now, instead of healing for 55, that was, you know, pre-patch, you will actually be healing for 67.5 healing per second, because that's 45 and then 50% extra. That brings it up to 67.5. So that's actually a buff in her healing overall, which will make it easier to top up low health allies, which is something that she's always struggled with. Honestly, this could be really, really good. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this will also impact her ultimate, right? Because when she's flying around in Valkyrie, she's healing for 60 health per second instead of 55, which means that if you then heal somebody that's under half health, you know, you get 50% more healing, which brings us up to 90 healing per second on allies under half health. If my math is mathing here, that's a very significant change and a big buff to her healing, actually. Even though her healing per second has technically been reduced from 55 to 45, that's really, really interesting. I wonder if that will actually make Mercy more of a main healer now. Mercy's regeneration passive has actually been removed completely, and her new passive is called Sympathetic Recovery. So Mercy now heals herself with 25% of healing done with the Caduceus staff. So she no longer regenerates any health passively when she's out of combat or whatever, but instead, every time she heals somebody else, she also heals herself with 25% of healing done of that. The developer comments on the Mercy changes are the following. Replacing Mercy's regeneration passive with a more interesting interaction was something we wanted to do after all support heroes gained a similar version of it through their role passive. For the Caduceus staff change, this will empower Mercy even more as a triage healer and enable her to more often save low health allies. The overall time it takes to fully heal a 200 health hero for 1 HP is about the same as before. Right, because remember guys, if you healed them over 50%, then your healing is reduced. So it's literally just those kind of clutch moments when somebody's close to dying that you have a higher chance of actually saving them. I think that is overall a very, very good change. For Guardian Angel, the cooldown increase is necessary to reduce the greatly increased mobility resulting from the recent rework to the jump cancel. It enabled Mercy to quickly launch herself long distances in any direction and be overly evasive for such a short downtime. I mean, I see the logic of why they do it, and I can somewhat agree with that. However, I will say that it feels pretty bad. Maybe it's just something we have to get used to, and maybe it won't feel so bad once we have adjusted to the feeling of the new Guardian Angel. But on first impressions, don't do it. Change it back. We have 2 more changes lined up as well. Moira's Coalescence has had her ultimate cost reduced by 5%, so more coalescences all around. And Zenyatta's Orb of Destruction ammo has been increased from 20 to 25, so he can throw balls at people a little bit more. Developer comment for Zenyatta is that we've been discussing options to potentially increase Zenyatta's survivability. We've seen previously in the beta that Zenyatta is on somewhat of a knife's edge for balance. Even just 25 more shield health pushed him into overpowered must-pick territory at the pro level. To balance his powerful damage output, the lack of mobility is an intentional disadvantage by design, so we'd prefer not to change that too much. Instead, we're adding more ammo to lengthen the times between when Zenyatta is most vulnerable, which is when he is reloading. I love playing some Zenyatta, but I don't know if this is going to make that big of a difference. I mean, it would be cool if you stopped getting instantly flamed the second you pick Zenyatta. So, I mean, hey, I'm all for Zenyatta getting some buffs. Then, of course, we have the Season 3 map pools. However, map pools are going away in Season 4, so this will be the last map pool for Overwatch 2. Obviously, we're keeping the push maps the same because there's only 3 of them in the game. For hybrid maps, we're keeping Blizzard World, Kings Row, Midtown, and Paraíso, but Numbani is the one that's being being switched in for Eichenwald. In Escort Map Town, we have Dorado is staying, Junkertown is staying, Circuit Royale, Rialto, and Shambhala Monastery are staying, and Havana is being put in, while Route 66 is out. Control has a fun change because, of course, Antarctic Peninsula is being brought in. Ilios remains, Lijiang Tower remains, Nepal remains, and Oasis remains, which means Busan is out. Anyways, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I super appreciate you all. I hope to see you in game, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.